Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Before we get too distracted with getting Oliver on the line, I wanted to say hi. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
So, Joby Aviation had a big ribbon cutting over the last week, and it was to celebrate this huge opening of the Plantronics building, which they bought, as their main headquarters. Tell us a little bit about what Joby Aviation does and what they're making.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So this is Tina, and we're designing this state-of-the-art aircraft that flies with zero emissions and is super silent. I've seen many iterations of the propellers that make it that silent. And the vision is to deliver this type of transportation that is offered at an affordable cost point, similar to the price per mile of an Uber. So you would pull out your cell phone and you'd say, hey, I'd want to get from here to, let's say, South San Jose. And you order your Joby, comes and picks you up at one of our skyports and flies you over all that traffic over Highway 17. And then you land at your final destination. And we believe that it's going to really be a transformative experience, not only because you're saving time, one of our most precious resources, you can't make more of it, but also transporting in a way with zero emissions and flying in the sky like a bird.
So how does it plug in like an electric vehicle? Is it chargeable like a battery?
Great question. So I'm not an engineer. I'm actually part of our people team, but I do know generally. Oh, hi, Oliver.
Speaking of people, hi, Oliver.
Yeah, you just want to try again. Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, and you have a lovely accent.
Can you hear if I'm talking? I have it on, and it's.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Should go both directions, hopefully. Put on your headphones. That might help.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me? Because you're sounding great, but I don't know.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, it's the magic of radio and computers. We're all set now. So we were just talking about a technical problem that maybe you could overcome for us, which is, how does it stay charged? Like, you wouldn't want to be caught halfway to San Jose with it charge running out, right?
So we have, where I come from originally in the UK, we when we pull off the road, we have these little gaps where you can park up your car if you need to. And we call them laybys. I don't know what we call them in America, but...
We don't have any.
Right. So the phrase goes, there are no laybys in the skies. And so you can't pull off, which is exactly your point. So how does it stay charged? Well, it stays charged just like an electric car does. It works in very much the same way. We use the same sort of batteries, lithium-ion batteries, that we charge up before each flight. And we charge them at the beginning of the flight. We fly. The pilots will have the ability to see the state of charge of the battery. But all the flights will be planned in advance to make sure that we know how the battery is going to perform across the whole flight. And if you needed any more kind of help in confidence to get on the aircraft, the FAA, or the Federal Aviation Authority in the US, which kind of guides how we operate aircraft safely, provide guidance on how much state of charge is required to be remaining in the battery when we land the aircraft. So the good news is, we'll know how much battery there is, we'll know how much charge there is, and in any place, there's guidance that says you have to have a certain percentage left when you land anyway, always as a buffer.
Well, it seems like one of the big challenges, and it's the same challenge where cars have batteries, is the heaviness of the batteries, right? So how did you engineer around that problem?
So we designed an aircraft purposefully that is as lightweight as possible. So if you think about the amount of power it takes to lift our aircraft off the ground, it's about the same size as an SUV, and it has about the same amount of weight as a Tesla, give or take, but we need to be able to lift this thing into the air. And so in order to do that, we were able to go back and design an aircraft that's super lightweight. So engineers have been working, people like Joby Aviation, who founded the company, but also a range of other people, real kind of true aviation experts that have spent more than a decade working exactly how to make this aircraft as light as possible, whether that's using carbon composite materials that are very lightweight, or finding different ways to propel the aircraft that use fewer parts. In everywhere that we've worked, we've tried to design an aircraft that is as light as possible. That means that we're able to carry 4 passengers and a pilot and take them safely through the air.
That's so exciting. And I want to get into the details of when is it going to be done. But first I want to ask Tina, the story of Joban inventing this is really fascinating. He was a Gateway School alumni, and he also lived in Last Chance. And can you tell a little bit of the highlights of his story? Because it's really fascinating that this is a homegrown inventor from Santa Cruz County that's coming up with this design.
Yeah, so the way that I heard it, and it resonates with me because you might see me cycling around Bonnie Doon. Joban is an avid cyclist, and as he was growing up, he would be biking to and from Bonnie Doon to town, which is, if you all know, not quite the easy ride. Anyways, even in his earlier years, he would imagine this aircraft that would come and pick him up and bring him to and from home in Bonnie Doon. And I think this vision really stuck with him throughout his life. And we've finally gotten to this point where the battery technology and all the other technologies that we're designing and researching finally makes this vision possible.
So back to you, Oliver. Are we going to see this being tested in our skies around Santa Cruz County, or does that happen elsewhere?
Sure thing. So we're very much a local company, and the original aircraft, the first iterations, the early prototypes, were designed and flown up near our original base in Bonnie Doon. We've since migrated just a little bit down the coast to Marina, just near Monterey, where we have our test base. And we're based down there because we need a fully functional airport. So we're down in Marina, and we fly there on a pretty regular basis, let's say kind of 2 or 3 times a day typically. And over time, as we get more proficient and we fly ever more, then we will be expanding the area that we fly in. So eventually, yes, you will see these in the skies over Santa Cruz. It'll be a little while yet. So we're still flying within kind of sight of the Marina airport for the time being. But we've now flown our prototype aircraft more than 20,000 miles. So we've got a fair amount of testing behind us.
Wow. And as I understand it, you're not the only company kind of in a race to design something like this. There are other models and designs. What makes Joby maybe one of the front contenders to get there first?
I think there are a couple of different things. And I'd start with the amount of love, time, and effort that's gone into designing our aircraft. So as we were saying earlier, and Tina said, the company was founded back in 2009. Joban's been working on this for a very long time, and that amount of time has paid dividends in terms of the maturity of the design that we have. A lot of the other companies that have come along are great companies with great engineers. They're just a few years behind where we are. So we think that helps. But we also think we've designed an aircraft that really suits the process that you have to go through to bring an aircraft like this to market. So it's very well suited to the regulations and the certification requirements that mean we will be able to get it to market. And when we do, we hope it's really well suited to the market that we imagine that we would be serving. So when we look at cities like New York or cities like LA or even in and around the Bay Area, the average journey that people take on a daily basis is kind of roughly around about 20 to 25 miles. People don't always go all that far.
Right.
And what we wanted to do was design an aircraft that was able to do those kind of missions.
Right. Here on 17, if you're listening right now and you're stuck, well, that's looking really pretty good because that's kind of the distance, right? We're talking 15, 25 miles, not like 200 miles. We're not talking about hopping to LA, right?
Well, we designed an aircraft that was capable of flying 150 miles, but we expect the vast majority of journeys to be shorter. So Santa Cruz over to San Jose or Santa Cruz down to Monterey, kind of really good examples of those journeys that sometimes are often very difficult, have a large geographical barrier in between them. Or, in bigger cities, perhaps where the traffic is just so bad that you want to kind of hop over it and jump into the sky. Over time, we could imagine if the battery technology and other forms of propulsion come along, that range could actually go up. And, Joban's long-term vision for this company and his personal long-term vision is that we look at the decarbonization of flight overall, never mind short journeys, but how do we get to net zero in 2050 on all flights? That's really kind of the end goal. And there's a long way to go technologically to get there. But, this is an important first step.
Yeah, and it reminds me of this film I watched when I was a kid called Those Amazing Men and Their Flying Machines, and you saw these huge contraptions just crashing to the ground. Not
Well,
that
let me
that's
tell
happening to you.
here for 1 second here that it's these days it is these amazing women and their flying machines as well, which
Right.
we're very pleased. We're very pleased and
That's
proud
great.
of.
It's the Wright sisters,
Yeah.
right? So Tina, this is for you. How do you find people who can test pilot something that's never been invented yet?
Wow, that is a great question. I don't know, Oliver, if you can speak to how do we find the amazing people that are willing to
Risk their lives.
Well, no,
The great
but
thing
yeah,
about
doing
test
something
pilots-
new and yeah.
Yeah, the great thing about test pilots is they always test aircraft that haven't been flown before. That's really their job.
That's the point.
So they always test things that are new or different, and that's their skill set. Now there are aircraft that take off vertically and transition to forward flight, just like ours. There's a military aircraft called the Osprey. But the skills, the knowledge, and the expertise you need to fly this is sort of a mix of a helicopter and a normal fixed-wing aircraft. So there are plenty of people out there that can fly both of those things and have the bravery, the knowledge, the experience, the skills to be one of the first people to do that. And to say, you know what, we do it stepwise too. So, we start with little hovers. We start then to move a little bit. We move a little bit faster, a little bit higher, a little bit further. And, step by step, we expand the envelope of flight. And we do that in a safe way. And actually, all of the flights that we fly today, those 20,000 miles that I spoke about before, are controlled from the ground. So the pilot is sitting, he's controlling or she's controlling the aircraft, but they're doing it from the ground. And that's the safest way to do it. And technology enables us to do that today. And so that's really where we are. And, it won't be too long. We promised our investors that before the end of this year, we will put a pilot actually in the aircraft and fly it inhabited. But that's a goal that we're looking forward to.
Yes, and I imagine like any test that anybody does, there's trial and error, right? And the errors teach you something. Has there been kind of a wacky thing that happened? Did it ever crash that you had to, when it was remote controlled, which it still is, did it ever have a hard landing and have to be repaired?
I think you learn a lot about flight testing, and one of the things you learn is which bits stop working and sometimes stop working at surprising moments. So for sure we've had moments where for example one of the propellers has failed on us, but the aircraft has 6, by the way, so if you lose one, the aircraft's designed to be able to fly with the remaining one, so we typically can cope with everything. But when you're testing something, you do push things to the limit. That's half the point. So if we forget about the whole aircraft for a second and look at, for example, at a wing, one of the tests that we'll end up doing through the course of certification is a load test on the wing. And during that test, what you do is you put as much load on it as you can, basically until breaking point. And so you end up breaking things to find out where that point is, because that's it's one of the things you have to do to know where the limit is.
That's right. If you just joined me here on KSQD Santa Cruz, I'm speaking with Oliver Walker-Jones and Tina West from Joby Aviation. They just had their ribbon cutting last week. Congratulations. This building has a long history, actually, of flight in a way, because the headsets they used to design at Plantronics went to the moon, or were part of the moon mission. I'm sorry. I don't know if they went there, but they were communicating with the moon. So now you're in good hands. Tina, how do you like your new digs over there? It's giant, 165,000 square feet.
Yeah,
you get lost?
I joke it's finally growing on me, but I almost said it was a little too nice for for us coming from a rock quarry. So it's definitely been a great upgrade.
You mean they have air conditioning?
To have air conditioning, and the koi pond is great. The gym is fabulous. We have towel service. Not trying to sell jobs right now, but we have towel service.
We don't have that, and we're your next door neighbor. We'll have to look into that. The towel service. And here at KSQD, we could use that when the DJs sweat it out, when there's a mistake. So that sounds lovely, though. And I know Plantronics treated their employees very well.
Yeah.
So now you get to enjoy their space. So there's different offices. There's one here. This is the main headquarters. How many employees are there?
Wow, that's a great question. Oliver, do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah,
approximately.
We're several hundred already in Santa Cruz, but the growth is probably the interesting part of the story. So at the ribbon cutting was on a Monday or a Tuesday, I believe, last week. Yeah, and that's the day that we onboard new people to our team. And Julianne, who is our head of people and recruitment, came onto the lectern and announced that we'd had a record-breaking day. So we added 23 new people to the business last week, which was a record for us. And as we look towards manufacturing growth, that's something that we should continue to see happening. So we have lots of space to fill, as you said, but we're making good progress towards filling it.
That's impressive. And, from an area that often commutes over the hill for tech jobs, having manufacturing and tech in the same space and hiring all these engineers, it's got to be great for UC Santa Cruz graduates, as well as people from Stanford and other places you must be recruiting. It's great for our economy. We haven't had a big new business. We saw manufacturing like the Wrigley building. We used to make gum here long ago. This is the first time we've seen a big investment like this in years. So welcome to town. We're really excited. And it's not like you haven't been here, but you haven't been in Santa Cruz proper. And you're right next door to the radio station. So Oliver, you got to come over and see the digs here. You'd like it a lot.
I am super excited. I also want to go into the Sentinel offices. It feels like Media Corner.
It is, yeah. We're Media Row, and we just had a conversation about journalism and media in the prior thing. But we are talking about Joby Aviation, and I think you guys were featured in a Nova episode, weren't you? That must have been exciting to watch your own project on the big television screen. Did you see that?
PBS Nova, a chap called Miles O'Brien, who's an aviation expert, put an episode together, and he came, he saw the aircraft flying, and I work in communications and telling the story of businesses, and my litmus test of whether I'm being successful is always whether my mother eventually finds out or sees something. And the day that she sends me something, I know I've done a good job. And she saw this, so I feel like...
Is she listening tonight?
She's not, but I will get her to. I'll get her to re-listen if she can.
We do have an archive, so you can go to our 2-week archive, and we stream live, so she could get us right now. But it's probably 2 a.m. over there. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She's coming next week.
Oh, good.
But so we did the PBS Nova, but I think the crowning achievement of last year probably was welcoming Anderson Cooper, who came to do a 60 Minutes episode that focused on this new technology. And that was really special, I think, for not just for the business, but actually for the individuals, to meet someone like that who was, sort of known and recognized as he walked around. And, hopefully as we get further down the path, there'll be more and more opportunities for more and more people to know about our business. We really want to put Joby on the map. We would like the whole world to know about it. We're still at the beginning of that journey, but if there's a way for us to put Santa Cruz on the map alongside Joby, then hey, let's go do it.
Yeah, we have been known for skateboarding and surfing and mountain biking, but maybe we'll be known for air taxis as well. So I want to jump back into the air taxi story. If you just joined me, I'm speaking with Joby Aviation employees, Oliver and Tina, and I was wondering, how does air traffic control keep them all going if there's a bunch of these, go picking people up like a Uber, get an air taxi? How do you keep them from crashing into one another if it gets a lot of them going? I'm sure you've thought of this.
Yeah, so I would say if you fly an aircraft today, and I'm sure some people that listen will have flown in one of those small aircraft, the kind of 2 doors, 4 seats kind of aircraft. If you jump in one of those today and you go up in the air, the vast majority of the air that you fly through is actually not controlled. You can basically do, within reason, you can do what you want or go where you want, choose where you go. And the way in which you make sure that you don't bump into other aircraft is you look out the window. If you're really advanced, you have a machine that shows you where the other aircraft are, but a lot of these aircraft don't. And when we think of air traffic control, we typically think of those big jumbo jets that we get on when we go on vacation. And that's really in the different levels of controlled airspace that you find around big airports like San Francisco SFO or San Jose Airport. Those areas are very strictly controlled, and you have to engage directly with air traffic control. But for the most part, you don't. So if we were to start up a network in Santa Cruz today, we would be able to use existing regulations to fly our aircraft around. And we may, from time to time, have to deal with air traffic control if we get close to controlled airspace where they try and make sure that the aircraft are the right distance apart. But for the majority of the time, we wouldn't. Now, that means that in the early years of operations, we won't have too much of a problem or a concern there. The question, the interesting question comes, well, what if you're in New York City and you go from having 10 aircraft to having 100 aircraft or even more? And at that point, perhaps there is a need for there to be more coordination about where these aircraft are going. You may still not need to deal with air traffic control because you might have avenues or routes that are kind of predefined that you go down. But even if we do, there are conversations happening with the FAA, with organizations like NASA, to look at what a digitized airspace might look like in the future. And so, a long ways down the road, there's a potential that we get to a new system that helps control this. But for the time being, we could just pop up in the air today, just like we would in a helicopter.
Well, let's spin a little story of the future, because you like storytelling. Okay, it's the year, pick a year when this is happening. I don't know, 5 years from now. You call up your Joby air taxi, it picks you up. How much does it cost?
So I would actually reverse a little bit in the story, because there's a couple of little additional bits that really matter here. So we are designing an aircraft, but we also want to operate the aircraft. So you'll be flying on an aircraft that's operated by Joby. So if you're sitting in, let's say, like downtown San Jose, you would get your phone out of your pocket, and you would go to a Joby app, you'd press a few buttons, and if needed, we would connect you with Uber. We have a partnership with Uber, and we have a partnership with Delta Airlines as well. So we would connect you with an Uber. The Uber would come and pick you up if necessary, drive you to where you get on the skyport, get on the aircraft, and then you fly to where you're going. Now, in the early years of our service, we expect that the cost is likely to be something in the ballpark of what you would pay for like an Uber Black today. So the expensive end of an Uber car. So, kind of a little bit pricey, but not out of the realm of most people from time to time. And then over time, as we scale up and we get to having more aircraft and more passengers and more flights, then we hope to bring that price down so it's much, much more accessible.
And there's 6 people that it can carry. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all.
It can fit 6 passengers plus the pilot, is that right?
4 passengers and a pilot.
4, okay. So you would be sharing it with other people who had to go to San Jose, for example. So
yeah, that's exactly right. You just book one seat.
Right. So that'll be a certain amount of cost. Now, is it a land use struggle or challenge or opportunity to figure out where to place airports around where there's already buildings? Are you flying to the top of skyscrapers, for example, that already exist? Or are you going to have to build a whole new infrastructure for these air taxis that Joby is designing?
So it's going to be a little bit of both. For sure, we can use existing infrastructure. So where there are heliports that exist today, or where there are airports that exist today, we'll use those. And by the way, there are something like 5,000 underutilized airports that are basically not used at all spread across America. So it's a really great country to be thinking about launching this in. And many cities like LA for years and years have required tall buildings to have helipads built on the top, even if they're not used, which they're not. And so we'll look to use existing infrastructure, but we'll also look to build new where we need to and where we want to. And so you could imagine shopping center roofs, train station roofs, car parks at miles, something like that. Lots and lots of opportunity for us to place them. The key thing for us is putting them as close as possible to where people want to travel, so that we save them as much time as possible.
Right, and most people don't know this takes out straight up and then out, so you don't need a runway, right?
That's exactly right. You just need a large concrete pad, just like a helipad today. We can land straight down on that. And the really cool thing about the technology that we've developed, then the greatest achievement of our engineers is how quiet the aircraft is. Because we want to be able to get people to where they want to go. And in order to do that, you need an aircraft that people will accept landing and taking off in their community. And if you get the chance to come down and see what we're doing in Marina, and it's a public airport, so you can come down anytime you want and come and see it. But some people say seeing is believing. I think in our case, it's more a hearing is believing, because you can have a conversation a couple hundred feet away, and you can keep having your conversation with this thing take off in the background, and it doesn't really affect you. And as soon as it's up in the air and it's flying over your head, you don't really hear it at all. And that's the magic.
Unlike drones, which are everywhere and they kind of sound like little insects. So we wouldn't want a truck-sized insect over our head. I imagine. We only have about 3 more minutes, but it's gone really fast, as it always does. But I thought maybe I would ask both of you, what's ahead for each of you in this process of making a new technology that's never been used before? Like, what are the next 2 or 3 stages of this project that are interesting and ahead for each of you? And Tina, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, so I'm mostly, our team, the people team, we're mostly focused on finding the people that we need to accomplish this vision, and also keeping those people happy. And so it's going to be really interesting. You know, part of the reasons why I enjoy working at Joby is I feel like there's a new challenge every day. And an example of a exciting challenge is, what does it look like to hire our first eVTOL pilots? What does that pay structure look like? What type of training will they need? Will we be developing our own Joby training in-house, which we will be, so answered my own question. But that's just really fascinating because that's never been done before. Those jobs don't exist right now. And trying to plan human resources and our policies and processes and procedures around that is something that I really look forward to. Oliver, maybe you can speak to the other side of the business.
Make sure you give them warm towels, and that'll solve the problem. Right?
I think what my role here is about getting the world excited about what we're going to do, and what we've already done. And we have a couple of things coming up this year that are going to be really special. And I think the one that we're tracking most towards the end of the year is going to be flying with a pilot on board. We also have our first aircraft that's about to come off our first ever production line in Marina, and that's going to be a big moment for the region, for California generally. So I'm really excited about that. But I think we remain humble about the fact that there's a lot to do to explain to people what this technology is. We're obviously enthusiasts and advocates, but in reality, people have a lot of questions, and we need to answer those questions honestly and repeatedly to make sure that this is a technology that gets accepted by people. That's what we want to happen. And if we're able to achieve that goal, we can grow Joby. It can become a great, well-known household brand and a great advocate for Santa Cruz too. That's our goal and our dream, and we're super grateful for the support that we've seen so far.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you'll put a big KSQD sticker on your new airplane when you design it. We would appreciate that. Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate your time. Tina West, Oliver, thank you both for being here from Joby Aviation. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Rachel.